but they were because that was the only time that you ever saw anybody that was trans.
Hmm.
That was it,
Hmm.
and it was really frowned upon. It was looked at as these
I'm
people were
aware.
like the low of the low.
Do you know how I know all about all the stuff you're telling me?
How
Because I'm 9 years older than you.
are you really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you look great.
Well, thanks.
You look like it. You look
But
19. Yeah.
yeah,
So but
I grew
what's
up
really
in
interesting is
in the 80s, right?
okay,
And so I know very well how trans people were spoken about,
right,
how they were
and
perceived
just
at
kind
the
of
time.
right, and yeah, and
And you know the reason
now
why so many of them were in Smex work and still
no,
are?
I don't know.
Because they got kicked out of the house when they came out. Or
Oh,
before, often, just for being
oh,
effeminate. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it was a very judgmental time.
Mm-hmm.
But my follow up to that is that now we see a lot of, and not you because you're not a kid, but we see a lot of kids who I don't want to say want to be trans, but
No, they
they
don't.
don't,
Nope.
right. But I don't think that they know the negative connotation it used to carry.
Oh,
Like it
they do.
doesn't.
It
Do
still
they really?
carries it. Yeah, of course. Do you think it's been easy for trans folks in the last few years?
I don't know.
It
It
has
seems to
not.
me really. I thought it
No, it
was just.
hasn't.
I thought it's like just ubiquitous, acceptable
No, no,
situation now.
no. There were over 600 anti LGBTQ plus bills introduced in state houses across the country last year.
And so, but
The
I mean, but what about?
75 passed the year before that, and a few dozen passed this past year.
But I
Um,
thought, aren't generally most people are not bigoted though,
mm,
right? Like they were. Or are you saying that it still is
yeah,
that way?
yeah. No, there's more that have a little bit better understanding. Maybe they know a trans person, and so they have a little bit more understanding of it. But I don't think, by and large, cis people do not understand us.
But we still live.
And a lot of people are afraid of things that they don't understand, and a lot of people get angry when they get afraid.
Right.
And the you
Right.
know the Republicans have spent a lot of time, effort, and money in demonizing us in the last several years. Since 2015 is when they started, and planning the assault. Um,
Hmm.
and
That's unfortunate because I
Yeah,
really thought I know in politics that the alt right or the right has been pushing against this narrative, and it seems like the left, all of it became politicized. It's
the
really
left
weird.
hasn't really done much. To be honest, they like Kamala did not say the word trans the entire election campaign. Not
Oh,
once.
really?
Not once. Trump said it a lot. And they
Oh,
spent
okay.
$215 million in anti-trans ads specifically.
Really?
Republicans did, yeah. Republican PACs.
Here I
Um,
am thinking that I live
yeah.
in a completely different world than when I was a kid, but evidently
You
it
you
hasn't
still live in
changed as much.
California,
Yeah.
so you didn't see it because it was mostly being played in the swing states.
Oh, is that what it
Yeah.
was?
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
because I'm in Los Angeles. I mean, and I live right now. I live at Venice. I mean,
mhm.
you don't even take a second look. Nobody really takes a second look at anybody where I live in
Yeah,
particular.
I live close to New York City, and same, right? Like people have gotten, like people are a lot more accepting of people from different backgrounds because people are from different backgrounds there, right? And you're around them every day, and it becomes much more commonplace. And you're
Yeah.
like, just live and let live, right? Like, but the area where I grew up in the South,
Oh
in a
man,
small
I can't.
town,
Oh, I can't even imagine.
they're afraid of everything. Like,
Yeah,
my mom's afraid to drive in Little Rock.
really.
That's the big city to her, right?
Well, it's sad
Um,
to hear that it still seems to be frowned upon or judged.
yeah.
I really thought that had kind of phased out. You
It
know.
seemed like it was going in that direction. Like people were starting to see more, trans representation. Like there was a character on Orange is the New Black, right?
Mhm.
And there was a Time magazine, or it was one of the like big magazines, had a cover feature of Laverne Cox and said the transgender tipping point, right? And then Caitlyn Jenner came out, and so there was a lot of conversation about it then, and that was when the Republicans started plotting, right? Because they had just lost the Obergefell case in 2014, right?
Hmm.
That was the case that legalized GAY marriage across the country.
Oh, okay.
And they were like, shit, we lost that one. That was the thing we used to scare up votes. We said it was going to destroy the sanctity of marriage and all that, right?
Right, right.
And they lost that. And so they needed a new boogeyman. And so they picked us. And
Oh man.
that's when they started writing model legislation and creating the rhetoric. I'm talking about the Eagle Forum, Heritage Foundation, American Principles Project, like about a dozen other right-wing think tanks.
Sure.
They literally, we've seen some of their emails. And then Terry Schilling of the American Principles Project, he's the president of it. He had an interview with the New York Times and he just admitted it. He's like, our goal is to eliminate all transition care, all of it.
But I don't
But
understand. Now I can understand 18 and under.
right,
Maybe some
but he said
people.
we'll start with the kids because that's where we can get a consensus.
So it's kind of like we'll start here, but then they're going to move the goalpost.
Yeah, and they've already hear the conversation starting and about like this debunked idea that like the brain doesn't stop developing until 25. What actually happened was they did some studies on brain development and they only went to age 25.
Oh, is that
Like,
right?
yeah,
Is
yeah.
that how that
No,
came
because
about?
the
Okay.
prefrontal cortex continues to develop like throughout your life until it begins to deteriorate eventually, right?
Right.
But no, it has nothing to do with like suddenly you're able to make, life decisions at the age of 25. But people are already starting to want to push it to there. And the convenient thing is a lot of, how you can be on your parents' insurance until you're like 24, 25.
Mm.
So then kid is off parents' insurance, is trans, is has
I see.
less likelihood of being employed, um, and um, and having insurance themselves.
Mm.
It's another way of eliminating it, right? Like so that they're trying to
But
just
what I don't
reduce
understand is
trans
why does any.
existence in the
But I
country.
don't see transgender people doing any harm to anybody. I don't.
No, but
I
they'll
mean,
make up
everybody's
that
just
we are, right? Like they'll say that with the potential of it, right? Like, and that's how they
the
scare people
potential.
into, yeah,
That doesn't make any sense.
of
I
course not.
mean,
But
if you take a group of people and they're just living their lives, minding their own business, not hurting anybody else, and
yeah,
I would say that is the vast majority of
yeah,
people in the LGBT, all the whole, people are not in that community are not out. There is it's just yeah, to try to like scare people. It's just that's like it reminds me of like the witch hunts and stuff back
yeah.
in Salem or something. It's
Right.
like
Well, it's it all boils down to misogyny when you think about it, right? Like being anti GAY, it's all because like in order to function as a patriarchy, you really need to have this like hierarchical idea of what men and women are, right? Where
right.
men are on the top and women are on the bottom, right? And masculinity is the ideal and femininity is not, right? And but then
No, I see.
anybody who steps outside of that expected gender role for them
Right.
is seen as breaking the rules, right?
Oh, I
and
see.
and
Right.
and if we're allowed to do that, well then that weakens the strength of the
Of the hierarchy.
top of the hierarchy. Yeah, so
Interesting.
yeah.